First up on the show, latest developments in the Israel-Hamas war. Intense fighting continues as huge explosions rocked Gaza on Friday. The death toll has crossed the 17,000 mark in Gaza, and reports of Washington giving a deadline to Israel for the Gaza war. Well, the U.S. has now clarified that there is no such pressure on Israel to wrap up the invasion by January. However, America says it's emphasized the critical need to protect civilians.
We continue to recognize the extraordinary difficulty of this task, as Israel is dealing with a terrorist adversary that intentionally embeds itself with civilians. But again, Israel has an obligation to do everything possible to put a premium on protecting civilians and maximizing humanitarian assistance.
Atrocities on both sides continue to rise. In a recent video released, over 100 Palestinians could be seen lined up on a street in northern Gaza. Reports say these detained men were forced to strip before they were taken to an unknown destination in a truck. Israeli media says some of these men were suspected Hamas militants. A media outlet, the New Arab, says one of its correspondents was also among those detained. And while Israeli bombardment has continued in the besieged Strip, Israel has vowed to wipe out Hamas. Since the truce broke out, its offensive has only intensified in southern Gaza. The number of dead and wounded continues to rise. Hamas-run health ministry says 46,000 people have been wounded in the Gaza Strip. The Israeli army released a video showing how its navy is carrying out strikes on Hamas and its offensive in Gaza. And region by region, building by building, Gaza is collapsing each day. Homes, official buildings, schools, hospitals and places of worship all have come under Israeli bombardment, with deprivation, destruction and death in the air in Gaza. Palestinians say death or destruction is all the same for them now. Gazans could be seen searching for any sign of life under the rubble. This after the latest Israeli strikes hit Khan Yunis in southern Gaza.
والله احنا قاعدين فيش احنا الثلاث انفار واولاد ابني الصغار نايمين عندي تحت من الخوف ما شفنا لو بعد صلاة الفجر لو قصف فجأة بنفكر احنا مش عندنا نطلع الدنيا يعني تنزل علينا يعني هذا مش حياة هذا يعني احنا الموت والدمار هذا سواء يعني الواحد يطلع من بيته قسرا هو والموت واحد.
With relentless strikes continuing in the Palestinian enclave, hospitals are overflowing with patients. People could be seen lying on the floor of the Nasser hospital after an attack on a mosque on early Friday injured dozens. Moreover, people have been asked to go further south as Israeli forces make inroads into southern areas, and delivery has also been hampered by continued shelling. No new trucks have arrived in Gaza in the last couple of days. Over 1.8 million people have already been displaced. This means a disproportionate number of people are trying to reach the Rafah border where also supplies are running short.
أصبح المواطن الفلسطيني في قطاع غزة يستصعب عليه أن يتوفر له قوت يومه كالدقيق والملح والزيت وغير ذلك، والفقر مدقع في قطاع غزة وفي مدينة رفح بالتحديد. الأسعار غالية وباهظة جدا جدا.
Meanwhile, as civilians, including journalists covering the war, continue to become collateral damage, calls are growing to demand a war crime investigation for the journalists who have been killed in Israeli strikes in Lebanon. The U.S. has said it is imperative that Israel's inquiry into the killing of the Reuters journalist in Lebanon comes to a conclusion. But the Israeli military has said that the incident took place in an active combat zone. While fears of a regional spillover continues to be also prevalent, violence in the West Bank has surged. At least 6 Palestinians were killed in Israeli raids into Bas on Friday. The possibility of a second front opening for Israel in the north has also increased. Lebanon's Hezbollah and Israeli forces are engaged in the crossfire. Earlier, a guided missile from Lebanon killed a 60-year-old farmer in northern Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said Lebanon can turn into Gaza if Hezbollah starts a war.
לפתוח במלחמה כוללת, אז הוא במו ידיו יהפוך את ביירות ואת דרום לבנון, לא רחוק מכאן, לעזה ולח'אן יונס. אנחנו נחושים להביא את הניצחון ונעשה את זה בעזרתכם. תודה רבה לכם.
And well, as fighting resumes, the hostage detainee deal still hangs in the balance. Hamas is still holding 138 hostages out of the 240 it took during the October 7th attack. Washington has also expressed concerns about the hostages still being held in Gaza. As part of the truce agreement, 105 hostages and 249 prisoners were released. This included 80 Israeli hostages who are now revealing accounts of sexual abuse suffered at the hands of the Hamas militants.